Welcome back to the Mike and Andrew Show. I'm Andrew Serwick here again with Mike Meredith. Mike, we got quite a bit to talk about. Obviously, the big thing being the Celtics winning the championship earlier this week. But few things going around the NHL and the NBA that we also need to get to. But first, man, how are you doing this evening?
Doing good, man. Going to the weekend, ready for the NHL. They're still going on, but the NBA playoffs are finally done.
Yeah, they're finally over with. Boston won, of course. Everyone knows that. We'll get into that, of course, here later in the episode. But real quick, we're just going to kind of go through what's been happening in the Stanley Cup Finals here. Florida went up 3-0 in the series, looking very, very dominant, and had Edmonton up against the ropes. And then Edmonton responded in Game 4, winning 8-1. They figured out Bobrovsky. They figured out how to beat him down low. I remember talking about saying how it's very hard to beat Bobrovsky down low, but they figured out a way to beat him down low now, and it's shown in the last two games because not only did Edmonton win big in Game 4, but they came up huge on the road in Game 5, winning 4-3. Two shorthanded goals given up by this Florida power play in a row in the first period. In these last two games, it's looked really, really bad. And McDavid has come to life, but Draisaitl's still nowhere to be found in this series. Very, very concerning there, I would say. He's just been nowhere to be found, but a lot of guys on that Edmonton team have really stepped up, including McDavid, of course. And Stuart Skinner, got to give credit where credit's due. He stood on his head against this Florida offense that's been hounding him. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. Game 6 tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern. I'm obviously still rooting for Florida. Still don't want to see a Canadian team ever win a cup, but yeah, Florida's just got to figure it out somehow. They got to become more sound defensively. Stop giving up stupid plays in the offensive zone, and stop giving Edmonton these fast breaks. And you could probably get away with a win there if you're Florida, but Bob needs to also wake up because he's been pretty terrible in that these last two games as well.
Yeah, I thought it was going to go the same as the NBA, but now Edmonton's got life, and if they win tomorrow, bro, like Game 7, anything can happen.
Yeah, I'm really hoping we can avoid a Game 7 situation. Florida wins it tomorrow night. I would love it to see Florida win their first Stanley Cup on Florida's home ice, but I at this point I don't want to give Edmonton any bit of hope. So, and they already have plenty, so it's just going to be very, very tough for Florida tomorrow night, on the road. But maybe there'll be a little bit less pressure on them to win it tomorrow night, so they can play a little bit better. And yeah, just they need to play a more sound game. Play like they did in games 1 and 2, and there's no problem beating this Edmonton team tomorrow night. But let's get into some basketball here. You want to hit this trade first that you want to talk about, or you want to talk about the Monty Williams stuff, or do you want to talk about the Celtics run?
Let's get these the trade and the Monty Williams thing out of the way first, then we can go a little bit more in depth on the Celtics. So the trade today was basically a 1-for-1. It was Josh Giddey, who was in the news for some very unfortunate reasons. Sleeping with minors over here.
Yeah, that guy.
He actually got acquitted of all charges. So basically, what happened is the girl lied about her age, but still, it's still a meme. Like it follows him around. Like no one is like a fan of Giddey anymore, and the Thunder get rid of Giddey, and they bring in Alex Caruso from the Bulls. So Caruso, he is just known as a very solid defender. And that OKC defense next year is going to be insane. Like, their starting five, like, all of them can play really good defense. And they have all of these first-round picks coming up from trades as well. They could trade for someone big as well. OKC's in a really good spot right now. They got rid of Josh Giddey. They got rid of that problem. Like, yeah, Josh Giddey's probably the better player than Caruso, but Caruso fits their team so much better, and Giddey has all those just issues surrounding him. So to get rid of him and to get someone like Caruso, basically for a 1-1, Thunder definitely a big dub. Chicago, not really much. I mean, Chicago's been stuck in the middle of the pack for it seems like 5-6 years now. They just ever since Derrick Rose has been injured, they haven't really been the same team, and they haven't really figured it out. They've kind of just been keeping the same players, running it back. At least they finally decided to change their roster up a little bit, but I don't think Josh Giddey's going to take them anywhere special.
No, I don't think he's going to take them anywhere special, but I do think it's going to help improve Chicago. I mean, they've been kind of just floating around for the last few years, kind of just doing absolutely nothing. Barely making any roster changes. So this is it's a nice thing to see for Chicago, of course. Giddey's probably the better player. He does have that off court drama that's following him around. Things like that, and it's good to know that there's some actual justice in this country still because he still probably could have gotten jailed even though she lied about her age, and it is what it is there, but good to see that that all those charges for him are acquitted, and he doesn't have to go to prison for something that he really didn't know about.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at her, she don't look like she's a minor. You know what I'm saying? So, like it's very easy for women like that to lie about things like that, and it's good to see justice.
I do think though that, bro, you're in the NBA, man. You gotta check that shit. Like, I don't care if she got a fake ID or like an ID. Like, you gotta have someone who's checking that shit, bro. Like, if you're going out to the clubs, because apparently it was at a club where they met, and she got in with the fake ID. Like, man, do you know how many people are out there with fake IDs, man? You gotta do your research, man. Like, I'm not saying that you gotta personally look her up and do everything, but you gotta be careful, man. Like, this is your entire career on the line over fucking pussy, bro.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. I mean, you can't go full stalker and find out, she did lie about her age and whatever. But yeah, you gotta be checking it out somehow. You gotta figure it out. Just don't fuck your career up over trying to get laid. It's just not fucking worth it. But yeah, no, I think overall this is a good trade for both sides. I mean, Caruso's gonna really really help that OKC defense, and man, OKC has a ton of picks coming up over the next couple years too. OKC is gonna be a fucking threat everywhere for the next few years.
Yeah, if OKC plays it right, they draft right, and everyone stays somewhat healthy, they could win. They could win multiple championships.
Yeah, I mean, they're literally starting to become a dynasty. Whether I mean, you're not gonna see that, flesh out right away, but over the next 2-3 years, man. Oh boy, look out, man, because they are going to be lethal with all these first round picks that they have coming up here, and so yeah. But now let's get into some news that came out yesterday. The Pistons have fired Monty Williams. They wrote him a $65 million check and said, "To the moon with you." There was a report saying that Monty Williams was completely blindsided by this. I don't know if this is just his camp trying to run cover for him or whatever, but Trajan Langdon and Tom Gores, I guess, decided to fire him, and now we don't know. It's reported that Tom Gores fired him and not Trajan Langdon, but we don't really know because we don't know who the hell's running this show because Trajan Langdon still hasn't spoken to the media yet.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't really get a chance to read much up on this. I'm going to be honest. I actually was told at like the end of my work day today that Monty Williams got fired. But yeah, it's just interesting to see, Monty Williams being fired after one season with the Pistons as the coach, and just they signed him on. I thought he was going to be the thing to turn the team around, and yeah, he turned the team around all right. Like they were so bad last year, but I don't think it's fully his fault, man. Like, dude, we're just so bad. Like, not much you can really do as a coach.
No, and the thing is that the roster was terrible. I mean, fucking, I can't even remember the old GM's name now. Troy Weaver. There we go. He was fired, but I mean, it was all Troy Weaver's roster, and Monty was trying to. He didn't try to adjust to the players that he had. He just tried to kind of do the square peg in the round hole with his system, with players that cannot play in his system. His system. He needs guys that can shoot, and the Pistons have nobody that can shoot. So I mean, I don't think it was working out. I think I honestly believe that it was more Trajan Langdon than anything. That fired him. Maybe he kind of told Gores like, "Hey, look, this is not going to work with Monty. We need to get a new coach in here." But it's weird because we're 6 days away now from the NBA draft, and now the Pistons don't even have a fucking coach. But allegedly, there's supposed to be a press conference tomorrow at 3:30 with Trajan and Tom Gores. So we'll see what happens there. It'll be nice to finally put a face to the name. Trajan Langdon for the Pistons, because he's been the guy. He's the guy that fired Troy Weaver, and maybe was the one that fired Monty Williams here. But going to be very interesting, especially considering that we are literally 6 days away from the draft, and now the Pistons don't even have a head coach.
Yes, sir. But let's now jump into the Celtics. So the Celtics, they got it done. They're up 3-0. Mavericks came back and stomped them in Game 4, and then Celtics basically took it over in Game 5 and won the championship. I was actually talking with someone today about just the crazy numbers the Celtics had. It was like 30 or 40 different things he read off to me about how, while they didn't feel like an all-time great team, like they did some all-time great things this season. They did some things over the course of the regular season and the playoffs that put them in the all-time elite best teams ever category. And Jaylen Brown won Finals MVP. Jason Tatum did not. So that was interesting to see. The quote-unquote best player didn't win the Finals MVP. The second best player, Jaylen Brown played well. I think he deserved it definitely more over Tatum. But it's weird because it's like Tatum, even though he was a superstar, doesn't feel like the best player in the league because he just didn't really shoot that well in the finals and doesn't really feel like that guy. But the Celtics team is just built. They're stacked. They're stacked everywhere. They built this team from the ground up like 7-8 years ago when they made the big trade to trade away Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce, and they got the rights to draft Tatum and Brown and built basically all the other pieces around them. So Celtics finally did it. We were saying all year that they had to get to the finals. It was a boom or bust type year for them, and they ended up winning it all in the end. So they're favorites to go in for next year. I mean, that was kind of the case too with Denver. They were favorites as well to win it all, but now Boston's favored to go back to back. We'll see though. I think OKC has a good shot. If somehow Dallas can restructure some of their roster, they could get back there. Denver, of course, and Minnesota all have great opportunities, and the East has got to get better. I mean, that was such a cakewalk for them to get to the finals. East has got to be getting better.
Yeah, the East really, really does need to get their shit together. It's
so bad.
It's like the Western Conference of the NHL. The Western Conference is so ass compared to the East, which is just ridiculously tight. But no, I mean Boston. I mean, yes, it was a cakewalk through the playoffs, and I mean even the finals was a cakewalk because, I mean, Dallas, as good as they are, I mean they're nowhere near as deep of a team and nowhere near, I think, just as raw talent has the raw talent as what Boston has. Jason Tatum, yeah, he didn't have a good finals, but Still a great player, of course. You know, he definitely didn't have that MVP type of postseason, but yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what they do. Celtics, man, I mean, what a run! What they did in the regular season and obviously in the postseason. Barely losing any games in the postseason. Um, just so deep, and they're so good on both ends of the court, offensively, defensively. It's going to be interesting to see what they do. But I think we might be starting to see a dynasty, at least in the East, with Boston here, because my God, this team. I mean, they're young still, and they're so talented. So it's going to be interesting these next few years for this Boston team. And all I gotta say left here is the Celtics are the balls.
Yeah. Celtics, yep. Like you mentioned, man, just like, I mean, if they just run it back, they have a really good chance of doing it. They set all-time records this year in certain categories that teams had never reached. So, yeah, just it was definitely a solid season. It's actually the seventh champion now. That was a different champion. So since 2019, there's been a different champion every single year. So NBA is starting to get that parity back, but Boston could repeat next year, and then, like I said, OKC, if they figure it out, they could go back to back in the next, say, 5 years or so.
Yeah, I mean, again, this team is so young. I mean, I think yeah, they for sure can go back to back. Next year, and maybe make a couple more finals runs over the next 6 7 years, and before they have to kind of blow it up. But man, I mean, it is nice to see some parity, of course. Different champions since what 2019, I think you said.
Yep, since 2019, there's been a different champion every year.
Yeah, so that's really nice to see. Finally, stop seeing a whole bunch of big dynasties like you used to have. And now, things are just right with the NBA, I guess, in that sense. Obviously the game still is a shell of its former self, with the lack of defense and all that shit. But yeah, no, Boston, incredible run, well deserved ring, and it was. I think for them it was just getting past Miami in that first round. Um, and that's kind of been their roadblock the last few years, was Miami. So getting over that hump, I think, just really helped propel them to this championship.
Yeah, I think so as well. Yeah, I mean, I think that kind of does it here for the Celtics. I mean, yeah, good on them for winning. Power rankings, they were pretty much number one all year, and I wouldn't say though it was very predictable. Like, I mean, yeah, Boston should have won, and they were the favorite a lot of the time, but no one was like Boston's for sure. Like, it's no one else has a chance. Like, even though they've had crazy statistics, it definitely feels like they are beatable. They can be beaten. While they pretty much dominated in the playoffs, I do think Boston is beatable for sure.
Yeah, I think they're definitely a beatable team. I just don't think anyone was going to beat them this year. Um, Next year could be different, could be the same. We really don't know. It's just going to really depend on how much the East improves over the off season here. And basically, now they're the hunted. So everyone wants to beat them and is going to try their best to beat them. And that's just kind of how it works in the NBA, well, in sports in general, I should say. So yeah. That said, guys, obviously tomorrow night is going to be Game 6 for the Stanley Cup Finals. So Tuesday we're going to be recording it while Game 7, if needed, is being played. Hopefully not. Hopefully Florida wins tomorrow night, and we can just be doing a Stanley Cup Finals review on Tuesday's episode instead of me watching the game, getting distracted while also recording the episode. But yeah, Tuesday we'll talk about what happens really in Game 6 and kind of just go from there. anything else comes up, we'll probably talk about some NHL trades that have happened this week. Just a shorter episode today. Tuesday, I literally thought it was Wednesday on Tuesday, so we completely forgot to record, and that's why we're doing this episode today. That said, we do have some news revolving with the podcast here. End of the month, Mike's going to be stepping away here, just because he wants to, do some other things with his life. Good on him. Ian will be coming in here full time. I know Ian hasn't been on the pod in a few months now, but Ian will be in here full time with me. So we're just kind of to go through a little bit of a rebranding here. But Mike, big thank you for helping me get this thing off the ground and just doing this thing with me.
Yes, sir, man. It was good being on. We got almost to 100 episodes, and I'm glad that Ian's taken over, man. Ian, definitely, you and Ian, I'd like to hear the discussions that you guys are gonna have week to week on everything, man. It's gonna be nice. But yeah, like I said, I'll finish out to the end of the month, and then Ian will take over my spot and kind of go through a little rebrand and continue with the pod.
Yeah, and of course you're always welcome to be a guest on the show whenever you want. Just pop in every once in a while. Of course, we'll definitely want you next year before the NBA playoffs start to help kind of preview that. Of course, since out of the three of us, you know the most out of the NBA, so we'll definitely need some of your help there. But also over the next few months, since it's really going to be quiet. In terms of news, we're probably just going to go down to one episode a week up until the start of football training camp for both the NFL and college, and then we'll get right back into going Tuesday, Thursday. Reviews on Tuesday, and Thursdays all our previews, of course. So, but for now, just until training camp starts in about a month or month and a half, we're just going to stick to one episode a week, just because there's really not a whole lot going on in the world of sports at this time after the Stanley Cup Finals. So, but we'll make sure we cover all our news and whatever else, and obviously we'll cover the NBA and NHL drafts. With that said, though, guys, rate, review, subscribe, help us out. Let us know what you want to see more of from us, and obviously, of course, what you want to see when Ian comes to the show full time here. So thank you guys so much again for listening, and we will see you guys on Tuesday.